Hi, it's JamesAnimalHarrison. I'm back with Tip Tuesday. I'm going to pass along a tip today that's been passed along by some of my favorite drummers in the past too. I've seen this by Steve Smith in his very first video he did for DCI Music back in the 80s. Todd Zuckerman's done it in several things recently. Russ Miller talks about it in his book, Crash Course for the Drum Set. And also any engineer, audio engineer, usually, if you talk to them, they will tell you the same type of thing. So what we're going to talk about is becoming your own sound engineer and mixing yourself while you're playing. And I'll try to demonstrate this, but it's going to be on a phone video, so it may not come through like I'm hearing it or trying to do it. I'm going to play the most basic beat, and I'm going to play it in the most basic way forward, or basic way possible, and just basically have kind of just lame in a lot of ways. So, I have to wait a second after playing. That works, but it's not very exciting and it doesn't create a lot of groove or a lot of motion. So now most people, especially younger people, tend to play the hi-hat over here. They tend to play it too loud and they get something like this. Or even more so. Now, when you think about the music that you listen to, what you're going to notice, especially in the rock and pop type vein, even the hip hop and whatnot, is the groove is on the bottom end of the drum set up. Technically, the loudest thing is actually the snare drum, and it's usually a rim shot backbeat. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the most basic rock beat, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter the playing. I'll start off basic, and I'll start mixing it myself to turn it into a different groove. So to start like this. So the way that beat ended up is much more interesting to me. This I hope that's coming across on the video. So the first thing I did is I started playing the bass drum louder. Okay. So what I want you to think about is how to mix that yourself. So I went from this, or this, to kind of blending that a little bit. So I'm accenting the hi-hat on the quarters by using the shoulder of the stick, and then going to the tip. This creates more openness to the groove versus something very choppy. I also went from a backbeat like this to a rim shot. And of course, more sound on the snare drum. Now that's just a basic way of doing it. So if you ever look at a mixing console with a sound engineer, most of the time, the first channel is the kick drum, a bass drum, kick drum, whatever you want to call it. And you'll see it's pushed up pretty good. And then the second is usually the snare drum. And it's usually above the snare. It's an important thing. And then if the hi-hat stirs, sometimes you might see the hi-hat over here first, or you might see the toms and you'll see the cymbals and overheads last. But the thing is, you'll usually see that one pulled way down because first off, it's a brighter instrument, it's going to cut more. And then secondly, it's really more like, the best way I can describe this is if you're making some kind of a meal or something, the kick and the snare are the major ingredients, and the hi-hat is more like a seasoning or a salt or a pepper. If you overdo it, you've ruined what you're making. So the basic tip today is just self-produce yourself, self-engineer yourself, and make sure, like in a rock setting, that you're blending the instruments the right way. In a jazz setting, you would flip that a lot of that over. The ride cymbal would be heavy. The bass drum would be very, very light. The snare would be on the lighter side until you wanted to accent something, or the same with the bass drum. The time is generated from the hi-hat and the ride cymbal. In rock, the groove is generated from the kick and the snare, and the subdivisions are in the ride cymbal and whatnot. And you can use inner dynamics and hit the bell and do things and make music out of it. But the idea is just self-produce yourself. One book I highly recommend, and you can still find it, it's called The Crash Course for the Drum Set by Russ Miller. And he goes through several different styles. And when he goes on the styles on each page, when he shows that beat, he shows 3 sliders. And those sliders are the kick, snare, and the hat. And how you should try to think about blending your grooves. So highly recommended Crash Course for the Drum Set by Russ Miller. And again, some of my favorite drummers talk about this all the time. And it's Steve Smith and Todd Sucherman and whatnot. So do that kind of thing. I hope it came through on the phone. Give it a try. And it should really, just in experimenting with it, give you more depth and musicality to your playing. So give it a try and let me know what you think. Thanks.